ahead and get started for our recognitions. Mr. Book is not here yet. Hopefully he's on his way, but we'll go ahead and get started with the people that are here. The first thing that we have is proclamation hereby proclaiming the month of February as Black History Month, and that was read in perpetuity February of 2021, but we do want to just take time and recognize that month and the importance it has in our community. Another proclamation hereby proclaiming the month of March as Women's History Month, and that was read into perpetuity in February of 2021 also. But again, we do want to mention it to congratulate all the women throughout history who have added to a lot of things. Alrighty, and then we have a presentation for years of service and appreciation for Chris Glowman. I believe Miss Rose is going to handle that one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to give you a little history. City of Fountain has collaborated with Fountain Valley Senior Center to run our transit dispatch operations out of their facility. Chris Glowman was the key person to get our dispatch operations running beginning March of 2012. We began our transit system April of 2012, and that's when it started running. Chris helped provide a critical service to many of our citizens who did not have the means to do certain things that many of us take for granted, such as work, the grocery store, visiting the doctor, or any number of other visits around town. Her service and dedication to Fountain Municipal Transit is truly a testament of what kind of person she really is, and we want to say thank you to Chris Glowman for all the service she helped us. We have moved our transit dispatch to our transportation department now, so we got that running, and I'm going to award this to Chris, and then we'll call Emily, our lead dispatcher, up to award Tyrone his Driver of the Year.
So, Chris, how many years?
I just want to thank you all very much. I really do appreciate it. For the record, when I resigned from the senior center, I never used the word retire. This girl is not done just yet.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, and then we have, I don't want to say wrong what MCC stands for.
The,
Mobility Coordinating Committee?
yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Award, driver award. Everybody who is a part of the MCC has a transit system has a chance to nominate their driver for an award, right?
Yes, yes. So every year, the PPACG Mobility Coordinating Committee recognizes drivers in the surrounding regions. The City of Fountain Transportation Department is honored to name Tyrone P. Johnson, Jr. Transit Driver of the Year. I'm going to go ahead and let you have this. Okay, in his 2 years of dedicated service, he has displayed all of the attributes of a genuine team player. As FMT continued to battle staff shortages in the beginning of 2021, he repeatedly went above and beyond, always ready to fill in and help out. Tyrone is recognized for his willingness to help out colleagues, customers, and for his flexibility. He offers input, insight, and innovation to improve operations and, of course, customer service. Tyrone is highly regarded by his fellow drivers, which is indeed an honor. Team is the heart and soul of Fountain Municipal Transit, and we thank you for everything you do.
No, thank you.
Did you want to say anything? Tyrone, did you want to say anything? You're the star. This is your 1 minute of fame, right?
Well, I'd just like to say this is truly an honor. It really is truly an honor. Through Christ, all things are possible. I'd like to say this is not taking one for the team, taking one for the team, and to help, to strengthen, and to support our community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Did any, Chris, or if you guys want any photos? Yes. You want council to come down front for photos? Okay.
Come on.
Chris. We know you love it.
All right, thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I would just like to give a shout out to our transit drivers in general. They kept our city moving when a lot of people were staying home. And, they were on the buses, and you never know who gets on your bus, and you never know what kind of shape they're in. So we appreciate you guys keeping our people where they need to go to the grocery store and doctor's appointments and anywhere that they needed to get within the community. So thank you very much, because it really proved to be an essential service during COVID and everything. And I don't think we had any drivers say, I don't want to drive. So that's hats off to the commitment they have to the community, making sure they get to go where they need to be. So thank you very much, and please pass those words along. Appreciate it. Okay, so the next recognition we have is for Ron Book of Books Automotive. Ron, can we get you to come on down? Ron has had his business in Fountain for over 50 years and recently sold it. And as my husband often tells me, when you own your own business, there's nobody to give you the Employee of the Year, a Month award, unless you give it to yourself, right? And you get kind of tired of patting yourself on the back every month because, the arm gets kind of stiff. And so to recognize not only you, but other single owner businesses in our community, we want to commemorate you for that long-term service that you've given, and hope you get to enjoy your retirement now. We do have a couple things for you, though, so give me just a minute, okay? Tamara, you want to go ahead first?
Books Automotive has been a big part of Fountain for a very long time. They started in 1939. They actually started in 1927 in Rush, Colorado, and then bought a Texaco company. And this is a 3-generation business. And they've been in Fountain a very long time, and they adapted the old A&W root beer stand into their working facility in addition to the Texaco station there. I remember that as a kid. Just an idea of things in 1939, I pulled some stuff off your website. 1939 is when Wizard of Oz came out. and Gone with the Wind. An idea, the population of Fountain in 1940 was 571. And in El Paso County was 54,025. So we've come a long way, and we greatly appreciate all of the service you've given this community these years.
I hold my age well, don't I?
Well, it's 3 generations, so we really appreciate it. I know my dad thought the world of you.
Well, we did all of the people here too in this town, and, when he bought that corner, there wasn't no interstate. That was the main highway from state line to state line. And, of course, when we burned it up in the 50s, had to build another one. And that building sitting over on Tom McGrew's property, over there, that 2-story. We built the Texaco behind that at the same time, and then in '68 we built the A&W. So yeah, there's been a lot of history there. It's been an awesome ride for me. I've been there 71. I come down here right after I just got married, 20 years old. And I didn't want to work in a service station anymore, so I convinced my dad to let me try to run the A&W. So, that's what we did. But I'll tell you that this town it's been awesome to us. The people, that's the biggest thing I'm going to miss is my clients, and we drew from a long area just because been there so long. But the town has been super to watch it grow from what, I think there was only 5,000 when I come down here in 71.
Yeah.
Total population, so. But it's been an awesome ride, a lot of ups and a lot of downs, but just a perseverance. But it's been great, and the city's always been awesome to work with. I've always enjoyed all of that. The city, they've always super to help businesses. So it's been a real pleasure, literally, and I'm gonna miss a lot of it. So,
Enjoy your retirement.
well, I'm planning on doing that. I hope I don't get to the point that I don't have anything to do and I want to spend it with everybody else, you know?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, and Ron, you're so welcoming to people who move into our community. You just always welcomed anybody with open arms, and made people feel like they were important, and they chose the best city to live in. So thank you very much. Anybody else want to say anything?
I just would like to say thank you for your service to our community. My husband is Larry, and he's been at your shop forever. And he wanted to be here tonight, but our son has a game. So he told me to tell you that, he's going to miss you.
Well, tell him hi for me, because I remember that. Yeah. I remember more by faces and what they drive rather than by names, literally. At my age, that's what happens, so. Yeah, well, thank you all very much.
Well, we do have a certificate for you, and it says, "The City of Fountain appreciates Ron Book for all the great years of service provided by Books Automotive to the Fountain community. Ron's involvement in and support of the community has brought meaning to the phrase pure Colorado. Greatness is not found in possessions, power, or prestige. It is discovered in goodness, humility, service, and character." And Ron, you exemplify all those things. So I'm going to bring you the certificate, and we also have a city coin for you that has the City of Fountain on it. And Scott, if you want to just kind of explain it.
Yeah, you bet. So, Ron, I guess I should turn this on too, right? Ron, on one side of this, it has the flags of Colorado and the state of Colorado and the United States, as well as our logo. And on the other side, it has different pictures that depict different aspects of our history. So it has the train, it has horses that depict agriculture, it has a soldier, and it has City Hall. So we want to make sure that we give you this coin as well with the certificate that the mayor's bringing up. But I just want to say, I met you almost 15 years ago when I first came here, and I've been a client, and I've worked with you on city items here as well. And I can't think of a business owner or just an individual who's been more involved in business issues around our community and supporting the business, whether it's through the Old Town stuff, through the EDC, and everything associated with it. And I just want to thank you for always the support you provided and the involvement that you've had. Thank you, Ron.
Well,
Appreciate it.
it's been my pleasure. It's home, so,
Right on.
yeah, it really has. Okay.
There you go. No image. I don't know if your wife's taking photos or anything, so. I'm like, I don't know where to look. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Don't be a stranger.
Thank you. Thank you all.
One of the businesses Ron didn't mention was they were one of the original U-Haul dealers in the area, and I remember him telling me one time, we have a luxury where we just get to plug our trailer in nowadays, and it works. And you used to have to be out there with people's cars and pinning the wires together with safety pins to get them to work. So made it an adventure. So thank you very much. We have one more introduction tonight, and this is a really exciting one. Our city was very fortunate to have the same judge for 49 years. Hopefully not too many of us got to come before that judge, but even had to look up how a judge was appointed because it's been so long since we had to have a new one. And so we wanted to give recognition to the new judge that is in our community, Judge Deborah Island. So if you could come forward tonight. And we'd like to introduce you to the community. Scott, did you want to say a few words?
Thank Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, something like this you wouldn't think is a once-in-a-generation sort of opportunity, but here apparently it is. But it was really, it was exciting to go through the interview process. It was exciting to welcome Judge Highland, who is the judge, who's been in law for a long time, but who's also the judge of Manitou and Victor. Is that right? Yes. And so we are very fortunate to have her here. Troy, by the way, wanted to be here tonight. He's really not feeling well right now, as well as with the rest of his family. So he wanted to be here, but we just are really excited to have you here and work with you. And after this, before our council meeting, we have a little reception prepared out front, just snacks so people can meet the judge and get to chat with her a little bit.
Okay, and Scott, you have a coin for the judge too? Or I have a
give it to
coin?
you, yes.
Okay, all right, I have a coin for the judge, and so we have a coin for you to welcome you to the city. And feel free to mingle around, give her the judge's quiz, and all that kind of stuff, and take photos. And so we will take a break from now until 6 o'clock so that we can have that reception to welcome you. And I'll give you this coin. Thank you very much. Okay, it's 6 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Mayor Thompson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes,
Here.
Councilmember Applegate. Here. Councilmember Hinton,
I'm sorry, here.
Councilmember Rick,
Here.
Councilmember Corey,
Here.
Councilmember Duncan. All 7 members present.
Thank you very much. We do have one presentation. Chief Heber, are we ready? No? We're still waiting on our guest? No, still waiting. Okay, we will go ahead and get started, and if you'll let us know when she arrives, then hopefully she's not stuck in the traffic out there today. I guess a few of us got stuck in all these different places. We would like to go ahead and have a moment of silence tonight before we go into the board, commission, and committees. We're going to like to recognize retired Fountain Police Department K-9 Officer Rush, who passed away this week, and Specialist Alex J. Rom, 20 years old, stationed at Fort Carson from Rancho Cucamonga, California, passed away this week doing service for our country. So if we could just take a short moment of silence in remembrance of those two people. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on to item 4B, Boards, Commission, and Committee. Approval of the appointment of Chief Sean Pearson to replace outgoing Chief David Gearden of the Emergency Services Board. And handling that will be Clerk Huffman.
Thank you. Mayor and City Council, as you know, our ESA board is comprised of 12 members, and those members are actually appointed by Board of County Commissioners and City of Fountain, with one outgoing chief who resigned from the board. The Board of County Commissioners and the Chiefs Forum is requesting to appoint the new member, Mr. Sean Pearson, to replace him.
Okay. And so you're going to need a motion and a second for that?
Yes, please.
Is there any discussion from anybody on the appointment of this new board member? Okay, seeing none, does anybody have a motion? Councilmember Rick?
Move to approve the appointment of Chief Sean Pearson.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion before we vote? All right, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, we're going to keep moving forward. All right, we have city council agenda requests. City council can use this time to request any item to be placed on the agenda for future consideration. And we'll start with Councilmember Rick.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, Councilmember Corey.
Nothing at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Hinton.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes.
Nothing.
Councilmember Applegate.
Nothing tonight.
And Councilmember Duncan.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. I just would like to say, if you haven't seen in it's in the Fountain Valley paper and it's out in the community, our Fountain Valley Youth, our youth department, Fountain Youth Council has, what we have going on right now, we have two things. We have a collection of hats, gloves, and coats. So if you have any of those items, we'd like to get those to donate out in the community. Also, we are doing what we call a youth voice, and we encourage the youth, we want all the youth of the city to participate. So we're encouraging the youth to go out in the community and to give us 5 things in video form of what they like about their community, 5 things of what they don't like about their community, and 5 things of what they would like to change and why. We have some really sharp children, so I am waiting to see what they come up with. So it's going to be very interesting and very good. Also, we have a couple of Black History programs that are going on. We know February is Black History Month. On the 27th of February at the Fountain Valley YMCA will be a Black History program. It starts at 6:30. And I have teamed up with the Women's Film Festival, and we have a couple of films that will be showing at the YMCA and the Pikes Peak Library District here in Fountain. All that information will be placed on our Fountain page for your information. And that's all I have.
Okay, so you didn't have an agenda request?
No.
Okay, thank you. All righty, public to be heard. We do have one card turned in. This is the time when citizens can address council on items that are not on the agenda. Council may not be able to provide an immediate answer, but will direct staff to follow up. Out of respect for the council and others in attendance, please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. I do have one card from Mr. Travis Baker about VFW Post 6461.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Honorable Council, for allowing me to speak. We have not had a presence here for a couple of months because we've had a change in leadership. My name is Travis. I am the current Senior Vice Commander of the VFW. And one thing I like to point out to our public is we want to foster a good working community with our community. And I don't think in the past 4 months we've really had that. So this is why we'd like to have an opportunity to come out here and represent, whether we have something to say or we don't. We would like to be able to represent, bring stuff from the council to our post, bring stuff from our post to the council. We are an open post. You do not have to be a veteran to attend our post. We do have a lot of programs that a lot of people don't know anything about, one of which is our Sunday breakfasts. You get Sunday breakfast for $7. It's pretty decent. Eggs made to order. And we have all kinds of other special projects that come out through the week. Like Sunday is a chili cook-off for the Super Bowl. We have 7 TVs. It's free to come in. And we'd like to invite any of the council, yourself, Madam Mayor, to come out. I know you were out for Thanksgiving, correct? Mm-hmm. Yep, because we met briefly at Thanksgiving. We do a Thanksgiving dinner. We do a Christmas dinner. We're open 365 days a year. And we're open for any of y'all. Come in, see what we have to offer. We got all kinds of stuff going on. There's something every night of the week. Trivia night is tonight. I'm usually down there calling trivia, but I'm here. Got my junior vice commander doing trivia tonight. We would love to have some of y'all come out and see and be able to take some of our flyers and see what the fact that we are here for the community. We have a food locker. We do give food to our homeless. We have had non-veteran homeless come in and ask for things, and we take care of them because that's what we need to do as VFW 6461 and a VFW period is take care of course, our veterans, but the very last line of the VFW mission is to help take care of our community. So, without any questions or anything, that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Could you make sure that Scott has the contact information for you so we can add that to our list of
Yes.
of who to contact over at the
Yes.
post?
I was just asking Sylvia that.
Oh, okay.
So we can get that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
All
I'll-
right, great.
I can have on
Yeah,
the card and
it's,
bring it to you.
he's got a phone number on here, but I don't have your email address for the
Oh, okay.
post. So, okay, all righty. But that
Anything
would be
else?
great, yeah. You might want to hang around for our special guest. Hopefully she'll be here in the next little while.
Oh, yes, I plan on hanging around for a bit. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Anything else?
Any,
Right.
I know
okay.
you're gonna post it online, but what time is the chili cookout?
That one starts at 1 o'clock, and it's free to enter, and there are prizes if you win. And there is a green chili and a red chili separate.
Mayor Pro Tem Estes?
Do you still have your steak dinner night?
That's actually the steak dinner. So we've changed our steak dinner. Yes, we do. We're actually going to move it to 2 steak dinners because last month's steak dinner sold out in 14 minutes.
Oh, wow.
The next steak dinner is, it's $14 for steak, baked potato, roll, dessert, and salad, and that's this coming up Friday.
And the steaks are big enough you can split it.
Yes, the steaks
Yeah.
are large enough that you can split them, but like I said, they sell out in about under 20 minutes so far. So we're gonna increase the amount of steak dinners we have, and all proceeds go to varying, they don't come to us. And that's one thing, I know I'm probably going over my time, that's one thing that a lot of people think is, well, if I go there and support the VFW, all money stays there. That is not correct. So the last dinner we had, which was we had a dinner for a family member who passed away, and all proceeds went to that family. You know, they got $700-800. I mean, every little bit helps, right? You know, when you're struggling. So not everything that we do goes to us. It goes out to our communities. So.
Okay, I don't see any other lights. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Okay.
We really appreciate everything you do in
Thank
the
you.
community.
Thanks for
very
thanks
much.
for allowing me to speak.
Have you started the citizenship classes for the kids back? I know you had to end those during COVID.
We have not, and that's one
Okay.
thing I need to get information about so we can get that started back up.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anybody else from the public that would like to say something that hasn't turned a card in? Okay. Seeing no one. I'm sorry? No, thank you. All right, we had one person online and they have dropped off, so. We're going to go ahead and go to the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be approved with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately at the discretion of council. Does anyone have anything that they wanted to remove from the consent agenda? Don't see any lights or any comments. We do not have a copy of the consent agenda. Not even the minutes from last week. Okay, that's why we were all kind of flipping around in the papers here. Okay, all righty, so we will skip that item. So that gets us to skip old business too then, huh? Because we didn't pull anything off the consent agenda. Okay, new business. We're going to skip item 9A, consideration of items removed from the consent agenda, resolution. Are we still moving on? I don't see Chief Huber in here yet. Okay. Resolution 22003, a resolution appointing the presiding municipal judge. And it says Troy, but
Tonight,
He's
the role
on-
of Troy will be played
is
by me.
online. If he wants to say anything, he can. We had a reception for her. Now we are going to
Yep.
appoint her.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As you're aware, we just got done going through an interview process. We had a number of really quality candidates, and Miss Deborah Island will be the one that we're putting forth to be appointed by the City Council. Through the city charter, this is a position that's appointed by the City Council. So the resolution that you have before you is to officially appoint her as the presiding municipal judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Can we have Judge Eiler come down, please? Did she leave?
She makes me out there chatting with some of the public.
All right. All right. Good evening, Judge. If you'd like to come down front, I'm going to read the resolution out front. A resolution appointing the presiding municipal judge. Recitals, whereas Article 5, Section 5.2 of the city charter allows for the appointment of a presiding municipal judge, and whereas following the retirement of Honorable Judge Torbett, the role of presiding municipal judge is vacant, and whereas the Fountain City Council desires to appoint Deborah Island as presiding municipal judge for the city of Fountain. Now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Fountain Council Colorado as follows. 1, appointment. The council hereby appoints Miss Deborah Island as presiding municipal judge. 2, exempt position. The municipal judge shall be classified as a part-time position and shall be subject to all city personnel policies and procedures, including salaries and benefits. 3, qualifications. Ms. Island is an attorney at law admitted to practice in the state of Colorado and has at least 5 years' experience in the practice of law. Term, consistent with 5.2C of the city charter, Ms. Island is appointed for a term of 3 years. 5, job duties. Job duties shall be at a minimum as described in Article 5 of the city charter and as described in the city's job description for the position, which may be modified at the city's discretion. Passed and adopted by the City Council of the City of Fountain, Colorado, this 8th day of February. Do we have someone to make that motion? Councilmember Rick?
Move to approve Resolution 22-003, a resolution appointing the presiding municipal judge.
Councilmember Hinton?
I second.
Any discussion by council? Okay, please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
all
much.
of you.
Look forward to not seeing you.
I look forward
Except
to
in
that
the
as
hallway.
well. Maybe at the local coffee shop.
That's right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we are going to back up now. I believe our guest has arrived. And Chief Heber, if you would like to come up. I was very excited to learn that Miss Colorado is right next door in our community, Fort Carson, and extended an invitation for her to visit our council meeting. And we do have a coin for you, so we'll get that presented, and challenge coin for you. And I don't really know the smooth way to do it, so I just hand them out. But, okay. All right, but Chief Heber is going to share some things, and then we hope to hear from you and what you're hoping to accomplish during your reign.
Sure, it's my great honor and probably the only time in my career, previous or since, I'll have the honor to introduce 2021 Miss Colorado, Specialist Mara Spence. She hails from the great state of Texas. We won't hold that against her, being here in Colorado, because later I will also read from your interviews how much you love our great state and our 300 days of sunshine. She's currently assigned to headquarters company, 2nd Battalion, a lot of letters, 1st Stryker Brigade, combat team, supporting the infantry, 4th Infantry Division. She's an active duty intelligence analyst, which means she's way more intelligent than me and my fellow big head over here that are police officers. That's what that means. Her grandfather served in the Air Force. And when I watched some of her interviews, that was one of the things that brought her to serve her country in the United States Army, and I was very touched by that because my grandfather was also in the service. This is very important, and she's dedicated to help service members that suffer from mental health disorders, post-traumatic stress. She is associated with the charity, and this is a very great charity, called 22 Too Many. As we all know, 22 veterans a day take their lives in our country, and that's 22 too many. It's committed to ending the pandemic of military and veteran suicide, and she is very enthusiastic about improving mental health awareness and reducing that stigma, because really that's the key. And she might share them tonight, but I heard some of her interviews. She shares some of her own journeys as a young lady growing up in this country and some of her own personal struggles. And so she's uniquely qualified in her position to share that story. She's also very active in improving women's positive body image and what that looks like specifically for young women today. As a father of 2 daughters, that pulled very strongly on my heart. She has been competing in pageants for the past 8 years, and she says that the military and her competition share one common theme. Number one, they're about helping people. And number two, they both require hard work and dedication, which I would say at her young age, the amount of achievement she's done thus far, she's got dedication and grit and moxie in spades, and I'm sure your parents are very proud. Now, this is the part where she says she loves Colorado due to all their outdoor activities and our 300 days of sunshine a year, which we all agree with. And we are extremely proud to have her here this evening. And I just want to give you the first coin before you say a couple of things. That's our police coin. That might get you a cup of coffee someday. And the most coveted Christmas tree ornament. You can always hang that in your Christmas tree on behalf of our city and recognize it on your service. So thank you very much. The floor is yours, ma'am.
What a wonderful introduction. Also, I just want to say that the 300 Days of Sunshine is looking more like 350 this year, but we can work on that. So, as he stated, I'm currently stationed at Fort Carson, right next door, about 5 minutes away. And I've been in the Army coming up on 4 years now. And when I first joined, I didn't know that I had ADHD. I didn't know that also my life would take the turns that it has since then. I competed in the Miss America organization starting when I was 13 years old, and I thought for sure when I joined the Army, well, that's done, because nothing mixes better than crowns and combat boots. After I got to my unit and I established the fact that, no, I really do love doing my job, they trusted me enough to say, you know what, if you want to go be Miss Colorado, go be Miss Colorado, which is good because I have a 10-year plan, and it was somewhere in there I'm going to be Miss Colorado. Again, I do love the state. We can't help where we're from. In 2019, I was stationed here, and since then, I've seen a growing need not only to recognize the fact that service members have a lot of barriers to receiving mental health care, but also began acknowledging the different things that make mental health so difficult. The nature of my job and my livelihood is that I'm thousands of miles away from any home that I knew before. I grew up in the same small town, well, not small town, it's a big city, for 18 years. And suddenly I was pulled away from that. And with that, away from any support system I knew before. And I thought, well, okay, the Army's definitely not going to be able to help me with my mental health. I mean, everyone knows the stigma that's attached to it. And in 2020, when I finally accepted, no, something's not quite right, I should get help, and I went to behavioral health for the first time, I realized that one, options for help are out there, and two, there are so many other services available to help with your overall quality of life. I mean, most people don't know, but the two leading causes or factors that lead to a service member on Fort Carson or a veteran, such as those who live in the Fountain area, dying by suicide, include financial troubles, which we have services that can help veterans and active duty service members with that, relationship issues, changing lifestyles. I mean, any of you have kids? I don't. I know how stressful it is, but that's a big life change. Getting married, moving every couple of years. These are all things that service members have to learn to deal with. And what I realized the more I dug into these programs was that many service members don't know the programs that are available to them. And then I looked into it further and realized the biggest problem we're seeing is that we don't feel like a community anymore. We're people who live in one place and who, maybe say hi to the neighbors, and maybe we'll say hi to our friends and congratulate them, but we don't reach out and check on them just because. We don't, again, grew up in the South, I'm sorry. My upbringing was a bring a casserole to your neighbor when they're having a rough time kind of upbringing. And what I've noticed is that it's not determined by region or by city or even by whether you're a service member, a civilian, a veteran, in any way involved in the military community. People don't feel valued. They don't feel like they belong anywhere. And that's when I realized that my mission as Miss Colorado wasn't just to end the stigma around suicide and to end the stigma around receiving mental health treatment, but also to help people within the community, within the military, within the veteran communities, and within the civilian sector, realize that there are communities out there that care for them, that value them, and then want them to see the next day out, and also that will be there for them when the going gets rough. There's so many services that are out there for us, and I've been there, I've been in that dark place, and I know how it feels like, oh, well, things aren't going to get worse, but they're also not going to get better, so why keep going? He talked about my struggles with body image and the reason that I talk about women having positive body image, and I struggle with bulimia and a binge eating disorder for most of my childhood, up until I joined the Army, and then I found out, look, that doesn't fix it. And then all of a sudden, again, had to go to those behavioral health care services and start working on that. And the thing that helped me the most was opening up about it, talking about it to friends instead of hiding it for the first time in my life, and accepting that they still loved me. I was the same person I was before I told them, and they were going to support me through my recovery and through all the things I wanted to do after that. I've been lucky because I've had the most amazing chain of command a girl could ask for, especially considering that I would come into work and then say, I'm going to Miss America one day, don't forget it, and then would go home. Well, there's work in there. I would do work. And I also have this community that I feel valued by. I have these friends. I have the Miss America organization, these women I've met over the years who are equally as driven and passionate about helping people. And I've also met so many people through my years just that I said hi to, that I was kind to. You know, Miss America isn't a pageant anymore because we don't judge based on looks. But I still consider us a part of the pageant community. And recently, we experienced a huge loss in the form of former Miss USA Chesley Chris dying by suicide about a week and a half ago. And the message that's been spread is check on your strong friends, which is great, but we don't check on our friends. We don't check on our neighbors. And so I'm addressing you guys because it's really hard to turn around and still hit the mic, but I want you guys to know I'm talking to you too. You don't have to have this to help people, and you don't have to feel alone either. We don't have to worry about, checking on our strong friends. Worry about being a friend. Be a neighbor. Say hi to people. Check on them. You know, if you know that one neighbor, I had one growing up, has 6 kids, and you got a 16-year-old that can drive, offer it, be like, hey, $5 an hour, they'll drive them to soccer practice. You don't have to worry about it anymore. Like, yes, love that. Reach out to people. Be kind. It doesn't take much time out of our day for us to even just send a message to someone that we're thinking about and say, hey, I really admire XYZ thing that you posted on Facebook. I'm really proud of you. You should be proud of yourself. Because I remember someone doing that for me and how much it meant that someone saw what I was doing before all of this. They saw Mara, and they saw the person that I was without the shell of who we put on social media or who we try to smile and be happy for. So just be kind to people. And in that small way, it doesn't matter if you're a council member, a citizen, someone who works at a library or is an attorney or now a judge, we can all help our community members in these small little ways. And by creating a community, we can help to end the epidemic of suicide. Because it's going to take a lot more than one of us to save the world to end the epidemic. But if we all work together, if we all play our part, then hopefully we can see at least one less person die by suicide. Because I say 22 is too many, but in reality, we all know that every single death is a tragedy. And even one death every day is too many. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did any council members have any questions or comments? Councilmember Hinton?
Well, I just want to say to you, Miss Colorado, as a former Army service member and now a veteran, I appreciate what you do and what you talk about. It is a stigma, and we need more people to talk about it. The more people that talk about it, hopefully we can help curb the stigma that is there when it comes to suicide. And so thank you so much for your bravery and getting out in front of it. Thank you.
Thank you, and let me, yes, ma'am. Do the secret hint. Thank you. Thank you.
Want to do a picture, Madam Mayor?
Sure, that's fine.
Our only shot.
All right, come on down, everybody.
In our city's history.
Stand in front of the
Thanks for what you do. Are you going to stay in the military?
Right now, it's looking like I'm going to go reserves, and then once I get done with law school, I'm probably going to go JAG. Yes. No, this is a lifelong mission.
Good.
Chief Hubbard, I understand you have gone out to Fort Carson a couple times recently and also spoke on the suicide issue. Thank you very much. It's not in your job description, so, but very, something we're all very passionate about, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting if you don't want. So.
Hey, no, you do have to stay.
Not unless you're
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't want Miss Colorado to feel like she had to stay for the whole meeting. I just appreciate so much her taking time out of her busy day and coming over, so thank you.
I just have a soldier to pick up from here.
Okay, all right. All right, we're going to continue on with item 9C, Resolution 22-004, a resolution establishing a $1 fee per vehicle for drop-off recyclables, and that is Lucia Tingley.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and how do I follow Miss Colorado? Really?
Shall we give you a little crown? Or?
No, no, her mission is far more important than my mission at this point in her life. So anyway, I only get 5 minutes, so let me get right to it. We started out 2014, a little recycling center over at the old streets and water department, where we serviced about, let me see, 30 customers a month. Now, many years later, we service weekly 135. So that comes out to about 600 a month. So you can see that we've grown. We continue to grow. We did a small survey, 3-week survey, where we had 31 zip codes come into our recycling center. So, they come from all over. Now, about 65% of that 3 weeks was Fountain residents. The rest were outside our zip code. So to help deter some of the cost, I'm just requesting $1 every time somebody brings a recycling in their car or truck, it doesn't matter, to put that towards just helping pay the cost of the recycling expenses. Recycling pickup. We have an employee, we have shovels, we have bags, it costs about approximately $10,000 a year to run the recycling. So I was just trying to help find a way to help recoup some of that money. Questions?
Sylvia, would you like me to read the whole resolution into the record or just the title? Okay, all right. Councilmember Applegate.
The program started out a long time ago, picking up at the curb and hauling all this stuff away, and that got out of hand too because people were coming from everywhere. So we set up this system here. And it's too bad that we can't keep this system for the citizens by some kind of identification for them so they're still free and charge people that don't have residence here.
Well, that would be great in theory, but when you have one one paid employee, volunteers don't show up, he does it by himself. We just don't have the manpower to, that's why we only did 3 weeks. But you're the council, so that's something you would have to decide.
But if you had some kind of identification that they could just show you, they could come here and get something that they could just show as they go in, and the other people would pay, he'd actually be collecting from less people.
Correct. So it'd be less money
So
coming in
is there a
to
way we
help
could think
the-
that over and
Well, if
maybe-
you think about the Fountain citizens as well, it's $10,000 a year to run that facility.
Yeah, but it used to be a lot more, and we did it for the citizens, and it was kind of nice to give back to them something.
Yeah, my concern, Richard, if I can just discuss it with you for a minute here, is that okay? When we were doing the curbside pickup, people from Fountain were actually going on social media and telling their friends, bring your stuff here, and I will take it there for you and save you the $1. So I think, what's that? Yeah, so I can't imagine that not happening again. And so I'm comfortable with $1 per person. So if you had to drive out to the dump to take stuff out to the dump, if you say your washer, dryer, refrigerator, you'd pay a lot more.
Right. I know there's other recycling places, not many left, but they'll charge $3, $4, or $5 to drop off. So
Right.
I thought $1 was pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and the price of metal is, I understand, has recently dropped quite a bit.
Yes.
And so that's very fluid, and so when it's a little bit higher, you might actually make break even on the picking up the metal, but
Yeah.
now we're probably not going to be, so that's dropped by. Okay, what would council like to do? Mayor Pro Tem Estes?
I move to approve Resolution 22-004.
And Councilmember Rick?
Seconded.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
Six yes, one no. Councilmember Applegate voting no. Motion carried.
All right, thank you very much for bringing that to us. Okay, item 9D, Resolution 22005, a resolution adopting the City of Fountain Strategic Plan 2022 through 2024. John Trilch. You're not John Trilch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for recognizing that.
I am quick
He's
on
way
the-
better looking and way taller.
Yes, I am quick on
John's
the-
going to be up here. I'm just going to spend just a second introducing this, just real briefly. The City of Fountain's been doing strategic planning since 2008. That was the first time we ever really delved into the whole idea of strategic planning. And we had some good strategic plans, but there was a lot of stuff in there. John Trilch came along several years ago in our last strategic planning cycle, really helped the City of Fountain create a more focused strategic effort. And as this council is aware, and we have just wrapped up that strategic planning cycle and are moving into this next one. And so we're really excited that we've learned some things along the way, and we've got now a strategic plan with the last iteration and this one that really creates a lot of focus and accountability for us all. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to John, and go for it, John.
Thanks, Scott. Mayor, City Council, it's my pleasure this evening to present this resolution to you to propose to and ask for your approval of the 2022 to 2024 City Strategic Plan. So first, I would like to highlight up on the wall there, those are the 4 new strategic priorities that you confirmed by resolution for this strategy. And so we pulled the old ones down, put the new ones up, and they'll remain there, for the duration of the strategic plan for everybody's reference. The Fountain City Council acknowledges that a simple, focused, and accountable plan is needed to convey the council's principal guidance and to meet key requirements for a community that is quickly developing and modernizing. Throughout 2021, the council participated in a year-long process to evaluate current conditions, update their enduring vision statement, provide city administration and staff specific priorities to be addressed between 2022 to 2024 that are up on the wall there. The public planning process included an analysis and review of previous strategies, an evaluation of recent conditions in the Fountain community, as well as multiple strategy workshops and feedback sessions that help facilitate the design and the development of both the strategic guidance that has been put forth in this guidance. The council has met in several public work sessions. In January of 2021, you reaffirmed the city vision statement. In March 2021, you developed your strategic priorities. Those were public sessions. You were both presented and confirmed in city council meetings. The strategic priorities, which were confirmed in Resolution 21072, and draft strategic objectives were also presented to City Council at the last council work session in January of 2022. And they were improved to go into the final draft of the strategic plan that you have before you and are considering this evening. So pending anybody's questions from council or the public, I recommend that you consider this resolution and adoption of this strategic plan.
Okay, I'm not seeing any lights on from anybody. Is that to make a motion or okay, I have something I wanted to discuss first, so hang on just a second. Okay. I did have a couple questions, and I know you and I talked quite extensively about it, and just where a couple of things are going to potentially be discussed in different places. One of the things of great concern in the community is the Southmore. I know it doesn't fall under projects to be done, under moving Fountain forward. Is that something that we can make sure we get updates on that regularly under one of these objectives, because just to show that it's staying on the radar, it's not falling off. We're looking at grants, working with the Fountain Creek Watershed District, anything like that, just so we can keep people getting updated on that.
Certainly. So under strategic priority number 1 that covers development and building reasonable capacity for future growth, that certainly can be included as part of the briefing of the detailed objectives that are included that support that priority. As council knows, the accountability mechanisms in the plan are briefed to council biannually, and council, of course, can request a deep dive and further detail on any of aspects of the strategic plan and the priorities at any time. So staff would be happy to take note of it and come back to council and give you a briefing on Southmore or any of the other objectives that are contained in the strategy.
Okay, well, hopefully we won't have any more streets fall off in the creek, so it'll just be Southmore. Okay, and then on the recreation part of it, under R3, it talks about completing the Adams Open Space Trail Bridge project. I know this might not fall under there, but over the years, people have talked about wanting to have I know we're very, very limited in the development we can do in that because of the money that was used to purchase it. But just keeping the trails in a little bit better repair, and maybe if we can label native trees that are there, or bushes or something, make it a little bit more, I don't know. Those are just some of the suggestions I've heard from some citizens. And then maybe including, incorporating our jail and our TB hut in that, to make sure that they're staying in good historical shape. And if we have it maybe it's part of that objective, or I don't know how you would put it in there, but at least we can make sure it's getting regular maintenance and being taken care of.
So that specific item is not specifically included in the current objectives that are before you this evening. However, if council wants to consider those to be added, it's up to the direction of the council to add that, and I'll put it into the final version if the resolution's approved with that amendment to add that.
Okay, I just didn't know if that
It's
could
up
be
to the
fit in
council.
anywhere that we already have, but, yeah.
Mayor, I just wanted to add real quickly, I think that this is, the strategic priorities of the plan is more of the big picture. And so getting down into the weeds on the specifics of maintenance of different areas, we need to incorporate that as the Parks Department.
Okay.
In order to make that happen. In my opinion, I would think that it would be different from the strategic plan.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that it's being put in somewhere.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. All right. Okay. Those are all my questions. So,
Okay.
Councilmember Duncan? I didn't see your light. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, point of order. I believe we have a citizen that would like to speak on this.
I unfortunately can't see her. So, okay. All righty.
I see that you hi.
Can you get up to the mic and introduce yourself first,
Hello, I'm
please?
Fran Carrot. I see that you have 4 strategic priorities. Are they in the order that they are hung on the wall?
No, they are in no specific order.
Where's the pool on this, or community center? Is that in the?
Yes.
I see it on there, okay. So that is part of the strategic plan.
Identified as a specific strategic objective to work with the YMCA and the proposal.
John, could I get you to come over to the mic for your answer?
So it is identified as a specific strategic objective that's supporting the development priority, and that indicates that the city will work with the YMCA on the plan project.
And is it, I don't want to get in the weeds, but it's kind of weedy since it's gone on for so long. Is there a plan for a community center? Not just a swimming pool, but a place for citizens to.
So that's not identified as a strategic objective in the strategic plan and community center.
Right. So objective R2 is present a recommended plan to partner to build a pool. So that is on there specifically.
Okay. Is there, how do you get community center on there for a place for people to meet? Most cities
Yeah.
have those.
When we had the citizen meetings, I don't believe a recreation center in itself rose to the priority to leave that on as one of the objectives of the strategic plan this time around, but to keep continuing with the aspect of the pool for right now. A
Well,
reminder,
it's
this is
not-
only for two years, right, John?
3 years.
3 years, okay.
It is not, I want to be clear in what has been discussed. It's not a $40 million recreation center. It is a community center where community can meet, such as when we have a Veterans Day affair, and we want to be inside due to blowing wind and snow and cold. We could do something like that there, and it would be for the community. I would really like for that to be considered by someone.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I guess I just turned it off, not turned it on. One of the reasons that we've been talking around the concept of the YMCA is because you have the Dean Flat Shower Center there, which gives us
Okay.
some really good opportunities to do the very thing you're talking about, whether with the auditorium or with the gym space.
Okay.
And so rather than us having to go back to the $40 million well, the idea was, can we partner, can we figure out how to do the pool piece, but partner with someone who can help us with the bigger center, like the DFAC?
I like that. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hang on just a moment. There's another person from the, okay.
Katie Helm, Utilities. I just wanted to add a note. You mentioned some informational signage to be staged along the trails, so that was an objective in the 2018 sustainability plan that we created for internal use. And so I did work with Allie at Fountain Creek Watershed District to create 4 informational signage pedestals, and I'll be connecting with you shortly, Sylvia, on the placement of those, but that is in motion, so those should be
Great.
installed here in the next year.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you very much.
Mayor, if I could just note one other thing, too. Just in the design of the strategic plan, so council provided essentially its policy guidance and identified these 4 highest priorities for the city to work on in the next 3 years. And then the way these objectives were developed is that the staff went looking at these priorities and developed plans, initiatives, and projects that they knew that they could achieve or attain over that 3-year period. In the last strategic plan, we started out with 17 in the 2019 to 2021 strategy. This strategic plan, our second iteration, we have 30. So really working hard at looking at everything we can do, but things that we can really think that we can achieve and attain in the course of the next 3 years. I would also add that in those periodic reviews that we do with council, the document is a living document. The council can choose to amend it and add or take away things anytime that it wants to. And so it's just another important point about the strategic plan.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone in the audience?
Yeah, are there any questions online?
Are there any other questions before we vote from any other council members?
Madam Mayor, can I mention? Just a real quick, Todd actually reminded me, it is on the website too. So if anyone wants to jump on, take a look, it's on there to go through all those 30 objectives.
Yeah, tomorrow morning, we're going to be updating the previous page with this new strategy once it's approved. So you can download it. We're also having hard copies printed that'll be available here at City Hall. Any citizen can come and pick up a free copy of the strategy as well.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Duncan.
I make a motion to approve the resolution and the 2022 through 2024 strategic plan.
And Councilmember Applegate.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion by council? Okay, seeing none, please vote.
Councilmember Duncan.
Councilmember Duncan, your light is on again? That's okay.
7 yes,
Been there,
motion
done that a
carried.
lot of times.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. All right. All right, item 9E, discussion of proposed landscape conservation standards. It says Katie Helms, but Dan Blankenship asked to come up
Yeah.
first.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Good evening. Dan Blankenship, Utilities Director. Just want to do a real brief introduction on this item. One of the potential policy considerations identified in our Water Master Plan is the establishment of codes and regulations for sustainable, attractive, and functional landscapes in all categories of land use that will result in the reduction of water demand. Utilities staff, utilities and planning staff have been working together to develop concepts for discussion with the council this evening. With the input of the council, these concepts that we talk about tonight will be refined and put into regulation form for public review and ultimately consideration by the council to set formal policy. In addition to the direction established by the Water Master Plan, this initiative is a step forward towards the fulfillment of one of the strategic priorities that the council just approved. So this evening we have Katie Helm with Utilities and Christy Martinez with Planning. They will present to the council the concepts, and we are seeking your thoughts and ideas and that will guide us as we move forward with this. So Katie or Christy, the show is all yours.
Thanks, Dan. Evening, Mayor and Council. Katie Helm, Utilities, and Christy with Planning. You gonna wait? Okay, that's fine. We're gonna tag team it tonight, so we'll kind of go back and forth as we go through the slides here. But as Dan had mentioned, this was outlined in our Water Master Plan, and it's drafted for discussion, so there's nothing here that's absolutely moving forward. It's definitely a discussion tonight. The goal is to encourage sustainable, attractive, and functional landscapes that support our ability as a city to meet the growing water needs of our community well into the future. So things we've been talking about for the last few meetings here. Our objective in updating these standards is to improve landscape standards through strategic design and codification. And as mentioned, it's supported by the Water Master Plan and also the Water Efficiency Plan. What we're hoping to achieve here is permanent and substantial water savings as we grow as a community. Next slide, please. Thank you. Before we jump into the standards, I thought it was important to talk about some of the historical participation in the lowered acquisition fee incentive program. We introduced that first in 2013, and what that was is we incentivized builders to commit to installing no more than 50 or 30% of the pervious area of a landscape with irrigated turf, and that was in an effort to reduce the water footprint of those single-family households. And as you can see, in the last few years, we had nearly 100% participation in that program, and that's when we started considering, is it time to shift this into the standard? Just also to put this into perspective, about 40% of Fountain's water is utilized outdoors, and turf requires about 60% more water than Xeriscape. A key component of the standards that we're going to talk about tonight is limiting turf moving forward so that it's not an incentive but a requirement. Next slide, please. With that, I want to mention that there are several jurisdictions that have already implemented turf limitations within their community. A few of those are Aurora, Parker, Commerce City, Castle Rock, El Paso County, and Colorado Springs are in the process of looking at this right now, and then Greeley also has limits on high water plants. Next slide. Some of the key components within the residential landscape standards include limiting turf to the backyard only. Reason being is we're looking at identifying what functional and non-functional turf looks like. When we imagine turf, we want it to be something that someone's using to recreate on and not just to meet an aesthetic. So we're hoping to utilize more xeric plant material in front yards, and then by limiting the turf, we want to create a larger area in the backyard so that whoever's occupying that home can actually utilize that turf space. Backyard landscaping would then be required. It's not currently required in the backyard of single-family homes. Rock mulch would be limited, and that's something we're going to talk about a bit more later on. We have some aerials for you to look at, but in some of these newer communities, you'll see a kidney bean-shaped turf in the front yard, and then you'll see a ton of rock in the side yard. So we want to try and reduce that because of the heat that it produces, but also we want to create beautiful landscapes that are safe for you to walk on. So again, we'll talk about that with some examples down the road. We also are proposing tree, shrub, and plant quantity requirements, updated to be similar to other jurisdictions. And then there would be a commitment statement on the landscape plans, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Next slide. There are two tables that I'm going to present to you, and they look very similar. So the first one is scenario A, and with that you're going to see 4 different categories of lots, and those are based on the square footage size of the lot that we're looking at. Directly under that, we have a proposed turf allotment based on a percentage, and this is very similar to what we had in the incentive program. So for the lowered acquisition fee incentive program, most builders were implementing about 30% or less of the pervious space with turf. And so that's what you're gonna see here. Also proposed rock mulch allotment. As I mentioned earlier, we wanna put a limitation on that. And then also the remaining pervious area can be met with our recommended plant list. So I've been working with Colorado State University El Paso County Extension Office and their horticultural agent to create a recommended plant list that is specific to our climate zone here in Fountain. And with that, they're gonna show us the water requirements of various plants to make sure that we're not installing anything that's very water intensive, so that that landscape is sustained even when we're in a dry period. They're also going to create a prohibited plant list, and that will be a resource that's available to all community members, to builders, to help them whether they're installing a new landscape or they want to convert turf to something that's a little bit more manageable. We also have minimum tree proposals and then shrub counts, which I talked a little bit about, and we have some visual demonstrations later on that's going to help put this into perspective for you. The main difference between this table and the next one that you're going to see is that the max turf allotment is demonstrated as a percentage, whereas the next one is a hard square footage. Can you go to the next slide, please? And as you can see, I don't know if anyone noticed the change, but under the proposed max turf allotment, it's instead demonstrated as a square footage opposed to a percentage. Next slide. Okay, so this, Christie's artwork, it looks great, Christy, good job. So this is meant to put into perspective, if we based scenario A off of a percentage of the pervious area and we limited turf to the backyard, that's how much turf space you would get to recreate in a single family home of the standard lot size. And then as you can see, the front yard has xeric material, it has trees, shrubs, and then there's organic mulch opposed to straight rock mulch. So hopefully this puts it into more of a perspective. I know the percentages can seem a little intimidating when you consider 30%, but as you can see, it's a pretty fair amount of turf in the backyard. Next slide. And the second one, this is when you base off of a hard square footage. So it's a little larger than the original one, but as you can see, it's still a fair amount of turf. It's just limited to the backyard so that it's actually used. Next slide. Some of the key updates that we're also proposing in landscape standards is we would like all properties to be equipped with a WaterSense certified irrigation controller. These are not hard to come by. You can find some that are at affordable cost comparable to non-WaterSense certified irrigation controllers. Also, we're asking for an amount of amendment. So here in Colorado, we have clay soil or it's sandy soil. Amendment helps with moisture retention. So again, it goes back to drought tolerant and sustainable landscapes. I'm not going to go through this whole list, but these are some things that we're considering that really reduce the overall water footprint of the home. Okay, next slide, please. And then I'm going to pass it on to Christy to talk about the commercial landscape standards.
I have a question for you. And let's
Yes.
just kind of stop for a second. There might be other council members with questions just about the residential area. One of the things that's always been frustrating is you can't go to Lowe's or Home Depot and purchase the plants that are, native or recommended for this area. If this is going to be a requirement for residential new builds, where are people going to get the plants from?
That's a really great question. So we still want to have discussions with the various stakeholders and make sure that we're creating something that is practical but also feasible. So that'll definitely come into play as we create this plant list and those requirements. Did you have something to add to that? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Councilmember Rick has a question.
Hold on, before we move on, just to add to that, with the new builds with residential, the home builder is currently responsible for installing all the landscaping within the front yard, and then they leave the backyard to the homeowner to design and come up with those plant designs or however they fit their needs of their family. One of the thought processes and proposals that we've discussed amongst ourselves and staff is to have the home builder also lay out the potential landscape plan for the backyard as well, because they do have the option and much more availability to plants that are better suited for our climate zone within Fountain. So we wouldn't be putting that burden onto those future homeowners to have to obtain certain plants that are good for our climate in Fountain.
So would that be a requirement to get the certificate of occupancy like the front yard is? That they
Yes,
have to
that
have
is
it
one of the
fully
proposals up for discussion, is to have the
Okay.
home builders do both the front and the backyard, as
Okay.
those homeowners can still be part of that process and what that backyard looks like.
Councilmember Rick?
I understand your proposal, and I understand where it's coming from. However, my experience in dealing with the public is when it comes to xeriscaping and turfing, people fall into one of two categories. Category one is some people want the front of their house to have the turf and the back to be xeriscaped because they're concerned about appearance, they're concerned about property values, they think that grass in the front yard will give them better property values. The second is the exact opposite. I fall into that category. I have dogs. I don't want my dogs going out in the backyard, running around in a bunch of dirt and mud and bark and then tracking it into the house. So I want the turf in the back. I think, this is my personal opinion, that we need to give people the option of doing one or the other, not forcing everybody into the back. Again, this is just my opinion, my 2 cents, but that's where I'm at. Thank you.
And these are standards that are to get into the house. So if they came in and they tore out the entire backyard landscape that had been required and put in all turf, there's nothing we can do to stop them, right?
In checking with other utilities that have implemented turf limitations, they have not seen conversion back to high water turf happen. That's not to say that it doesn't occur. I would say that with the way our tier system is designed, that someone wouldn't necessarily want to convert from xeriscape back to turf. And that would certainly be a challenge for us to enforce. So I guess to answer your question, I don't have any strong concerns about that, but it is a possibility. And then also, to your point, whether the turf is in the front or the backyard, it's still achieving the permanent water savings of the water footprint of the home. So that's certainly a great something. It's something to be considered for sure. We would still be achieving what we're seeking to achieve through this proposal. It would just give a little more flexibility with the person moving into the home. So I think that's great.
Councilmember Duncan, do you have a question?
I have a question, and I don't know if this is possible. Can we do, we have Cassidy does the wonderful videos. Can we do some type of video presentation to do at the HOAs or something? So, because when, I went to the HOA last week and it was just, I hate to go. I wish I could change it to somebody else, but I get asked all these questions and I have, I don't know all the details and I really prefer just sit in the back and listen. But I would want to see if we can do some type of video thing where people can go on and get, and this presentation I think would answer a lot of questions.
I can absolutely, I'm sorry. I can work with John and HOAs to set that up, absolutely. And we do have some photos at the end of this that show what xeriscape can look like, because I feel like that is part of the perception, and why some can be hesitant is because maybe they're thinking rocks, cactus. So the opportunity to show what it could look like would be absolutely beneficial. So thank you for that.
Okay, any further question? Councilmember Hinton on the residential?
Yes.
Okay.
So I understand this is incentive for commercial builders to do for new builders, but how do we get our existing consumers that live in residential areas to kind of get this buy-on to do this as well?
Great question. This year, we're offering the lawn replacement program, and that it is an incentive for pre-existing properties, and you can participate whether you're a commercial property or a residential one, but what it is it's a cost share program. So we partner with Resource Central to rip out healthy turf, and then they'll give you a box of pre-designed xeric materials and a design map, so you can kind of plug and play that into your landscape. The maximum benefit per customer is $1,000, so imagine converting about 500 square feet of space. That's what that would look like. We opened that up, or we started promoting it about 2 weeks ago, and we received 22 applications, so that's very exciting. How many will follow through, I'm not sure, but it's something that we're offering for those that are looking to convert their current high water landscape. Depending on how the pilot goes, we may make it bigger next year.
And that's on our website, the city's website to go?
It's on the website, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We have a question from the staff.
Actually, just a addition to that, there is also pending state legislation that will do the exact same thing, that will subsidize existing homeowners to change out their turf. So we're monitoring that legislation. And as Katie talked about, we're going to do this through incentivizing our existing property owners through education, and really focusing on the programs that we have to get those property owners to change over, and especially as we'll take the opportunity to visit with those who, when they come to us and kind of concerned about their water bills, this will be one of the things, and if there's other options that come along, that we will offer to them as a means for reducing their water bills.
Okay. Anybody else questions on the residential part of this?
Okay, I'll be here, so.
Okay. Christie, commercial.
Good evening. Christy Martinez with the Planning Department. I just break the mic and put it back together. So on the commercial standards, our zoning ordinance already addresses a lot of the commercial landscaping. It was reviewed in 2020 to make sure that we're not too overbearing on a lot of it, but we can still tweak it a lot to make it more water conscious, to enhance some of the xeriscape standards and conservation methods. So one of those is to also adopt that plant list that Katie had mentioned that we're working with the CSU Extension Office to create, so that the plant lists are very specific to Fountain's climate zone. Our climate zone is very different from Pueblo and very different to Colorado Springs. Even on the southern end of Colorado Springs, it can be very different from the moisture content that we get down in Fountain. We're known as the donut hole, and there's a reason for that. So there are certain plants that may thrive in central Colorado Springs that won't thrive in Fountain because of the amount of moisture that we just don't get naturally. So we do want to make sure that that is somehow incorporated into standards for both the residential and the commercial. We also want to start implementing irrigation plans to be submitted with the commercial developments. When new commercial is submitted for review, they are required by statutory requirements to provide a landscape plan that is certified or designed by a certified Colorado licensed landscape architect. So there's already a higher level of design and care that goes into the types of plantings and where they go. What we're finding is that the plantings may fit our climate zone, but the moisture and the amount of water that are required for certain plants where they're planted on the site aren't fitting. A good example would be where a tree is planted within a landscape island that requires a significant amount of water, and then they have a lot of shrubs surrounding it that are drought tolerant and don't require a lot of water. So as they're irrigating for the tree, they're then flooding out those shrubs and they're dying. So then we're back to the same situation of dead landscaping within our commercial areas, which is not beneficial to anybody. It doesn't represent the city in a good light. It doesn't represent the business in a good light. So we want to make sure that those irrigation plans are matching what is actually being planted right now. Much to the same standards as the residential, we want to make sure that they're adding soil amendments to make sure that those plantings are going to thrive within the soils that we have in Fountain, and make sure that the irrigation heads are those certified irrigation heads and irrigation sprinklers, pop up or spray otherwise, that meet our requirements. Next slide. One thing that we've looked at is our tree caliper size. So for evergreen trees, the standard, industry standard is a 6-foot high tree, which is a typical commercial size tree that you would get if it's an evergreen. When it comes to more of the deciduous or ornamental types of trees, we see various tree caliper size. And a tree caliper size is measured by the diameter of the tree 6 inches up from the ground. We have a current standard of 2.5 inches. From what I've heard from a lot of individuals is that there are some trees that they get from nurseries that just don't meet that standard, that they just don't come in that. So we wanted to look at the different plantings that come out of that suggested plant list from the CSU Extension Office and look at possibly reducing that down to 2 or even down to 1.5 inches to still meet those criteria where they are readily available to the landscapers that are going to be installing that within our commercial areas. Another area to review is the percentage of non-living material, so rock or mulch. It's currently set at 50%, so we can look at how we modify that because we're getting a lot of rock, which is great. It doesn't cost any water to do that, but then the weeds come up and then you have another nuisance with it. So it's kind of finding that good balance between what looks aesthetically pleasing but is still functional in terms of plantings and irrigation. Another area we're looking at is our parking lot landscaping. We're really vague currently in our current regulations in terms of the number of parking lot landscaping. A lot of this is seen within the planting islands, the landscape parking islands, where you might see one tree and then a lot of rock. But if we've ever gone to much of the larger commercial entities, they end up being a parking space for shopping carts when the cart corral is 20 feet down the street. So we want to make sure that our planting islands are being used functionally. We're looking at a lot of engineering requirements for how drainage flows, so rather than having them go through the parking lot through drainage pans, that they could utilize some of our planting islands to help filter out some of the drainage. So we want to make sure that those landscape islands are also functional for that aspect and not just one tree with a bunch of rock that is then being used for trash, carts, other debris, people who just don't want to take that extra few steps to go to the cart corral and drop them off. We also want to be cognizant of how our parking lot islands are designed, because right now we're getting some conflicting standards between where they're placing light poles and the plantings, where the plant roots are then disrupting some of the plant or the electrical wires within the street lights that are being placed within those islands. Next slide. We also want to add to that prohibited list some of those high water sod and irrigated turf materials that we're seeing, bluegrass, a lot of the fescues. We want to focus on some of the blends of our turf that are more water tolerant. We're also kind of mirroring some of the residential to limit the amount of irrigated turf and to make sure that it's functional. And to put that into perspective, multifamily developments are also considered commercial. So we want to make sure that residents who do live in apartment complexes have a place for their children or themselves to recreate or to just get out and be able to utilize it where it's functional. It's not placed along their roadway where they're playing feet from traffic. That doesn't make logical sense for the functionality of turf. A lot of our commercial entities already, such as the Maverick that's going in, the Quick Quack that's going in, have already started to limit some of their turf based on conversations that we had. We're already strongly encouraging individuals in these companies to focus on drought-tolerant plants and xeriscape plants and be cognizant of that and limit the amount of turf, but although we can't require it at this point. But again, just to duplicate some of the same requirements from the residential for soil amendments, irrigation, and add additional landscape maintenance notes. Next slide. In terms of some of the community resources that are already currently available, there's a lot of certification programs that Katie is much more well-versed in than I am that are available to help promote the water consciousness of our community and promote the xeric landscape and water conservation. But we don't propose to make those requirements by any means. We want to give the tools to give these tools and resources to the entities that do work in our community that can use that to then better practice their own company, whether it's in Fountain or elsewhere. Katie, you can explain more of what those are.
No, that was great. That pretty much encompassed what I was going to say. Is we know we're updating the standards. What exactly that looks like moving forward, is based on this discussion and discussions we have with stakeholders. But regardless what we do, we want to make sure that landscapers that work in the area are empowered with the resources they need in order to implement whatever we propose. So here are some of the local organizations that we can hire to offer classes to some of the local landscapers, and the city would cover that. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, working with CSU El Paso County Extension Office on the required and prohibited plant material. So we don't want to just implement changes and say good luck. We want to provide the resources that empower everyone to do what we're talking about here. Next slide. Again, I wanted to outline the benefits. I know we get kind of lost in reducing the water footprint of the home, but really this aligns with a lot of things that we're trying to achieve as a community, so I wanted to outline those here. Sustainability. Fountain is a highly transient community, and when some of these homes are changing hands in just a few years, it's not uncommon to see the landscape be abandoned. So by having a lower water landscape that is established, we're hoping to see more care over the years and longevity and establishment to that plant material. Resiliency, we talked about this with the recommended plant list. These plants are going to be able to thrive even when we experience variable precipitation events. Also, aesthetics. As you mentioned earlier, some people like the turf in the front yard. We're hoping by incorporating more xeriscape that can appeal to others that would like to move to the fountain area. Function, we talked about that with the turf. We still want to have a large turf space that people can utilize for whatever they want. Maybe it's a picnic, maybe it's sports. We don't want to completely eliminate turf. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the permanent water savings that can be achieved by limiting that Kentucky bluegrass. Next slide. Do you want to talk about this one?
So I think the biggest question tonight is what exactly does it look like? So these are, all the photos that you're going to see mostly tonight are ones that are new build homes that qualified for or implemented the 30 or 50% incentive program that Katie mentioned at the beginning. And some of them have kept it, some of them haven't, and some of them have just let it go by the wayside. And so that's kind of what we're at right now. So these 3 photos are all new residential homes within 2 of the newer developments that did submit their landscape plan to qualify for their 30%, and then subsequently ripped out the turf in the front yard and installed AstroTurf. So ironically enough, I took photos with snow on the ground. So you get this bright green patch with a little bit of snow. So that's something that some homeowners have looked at because it's not really functional to get out there with a lawnmower and mow a little 200 square foot patch. So they're looking at the functionality of it and what works best for them. Next slide. These 2 homes are still the same. They qualified and installed the small patch of turf in the front yard and have maintained it, at least from the best visual that we could see in winter. It looks like the grass was well maintained and watered throughout the spring and summer, and then is just in their dormant stage at the moment. Next slide. And these are homes that didn't keep up with the maintenance of the small patch. And so as you drive by, you have your tree that may or may not have survived, and then a dead patch of just dirt in the front yard. So in terms of aesthetic, as you drive down the street, your neighbor may have kept up with it, one side kept up with it, one may not, and then maybe down the road you have some AstroTurf. So you get a little bit of a hodgepodge of everything as you drive down some of these new builds. Next slide. These are some aerials of what it looked like prior to. So the first photo at the top shows various new homes in the Cumberland Green area where their backyard was all turf. This was prior to the implementation of the incentive program. And then the second photo below shows what the backyards kind of really look like when they start to limit that amount of irrigated turf. What you see with the home builders as this incentive program started to roll out in its infancy in the early stages was that you'd have your small patch of turf in the front yard and a small patch in the backyard, but it was all rock. There was no variety, no diversity in terms of plants or mulch. It was rock and turf.
Can I comment on
Yep.
So looking at this is not, we could do better at beautifying our community by diversifying the plant material that we're incorporating into landscape. If you look at some of these houses on the far right bottom side, you'll see that there's a lot of rock in between these two, in between the properties on the end. That creates a lot of warming. There's not any shade in that area. It's not necessarily safe to run on if you have kids because those are really big cobblestones there. So we're hoping to really diversify what the landscapes look like, make it a beautiful, sustainable community. So that's what we're seeking to achieve. It's not just limit the turf, but how do we make it aesthetically appealing still?
And there was some conversation about what happens if the homeowners go and rip out the turf or their xeriscape afterwards. In the bottom photo in the right-hand corner at the very, very corner is an example of that, where their backyard was likely mostly rock, and it's, as you can see in the Google Earth image, it's mostly turf. And they ultimately make that decision, and they pay for that with the amount of water usage on their utility bill each month. Next slide. This is more of just a zoomed-in area of the same Cumberland Green, where you can see the amount of rock that just gets laid out within the home builders. And so, as Katie said, we can do better. We can still promote xeric, we can still promote water conservation, but we can do better than just rock mulch. Next slide. So some examples of the commercial areas, I picked this intersection of Cross Creek and Fountain Mesa because you have a variety of different commercial entities there that all came in various time frames within the last 10 years. So in the northwest corner, which is the upper left, you have Les Schwab that finished their construction, I believe it was in 2012. And so they have a little bit of, I think it's called dogwood or dog grass along Fountain Mesa. So it is a low water usage type of a turf, and it's mixed with some of the native seed. But otherwise, they don't really have a lot of irrigated turf because it's not functional for the purpose of what they're utilizing. On the southwest corner, you have the Come and Go that was installed or was constructed around 2008, 2010 timeframe. And so they have some irrigated turf along Fountain Mesa and Mesa, but they also have along their western boundary, which is the left side of the screen, a lot of irrigated turf that isn't functionally used. You have the parking lot to access the back part of the convenience store, but nobody is out there recreating. Nobody is really doing anything except for maybe walking their dog if they had to stop and get gas and let the dogs use the grass. On the southeast corner, you have Culver's, and similar to the Les Schwab, they have a little bit of a streetscape with some irrigated turf there. And then you have the O'Reillys that was recently built, and they have a significant amount of irrigated turf along the intersection there of Cross Creek and Fountain Mesa. I don't know how many of you have driven by, but they tend to have a lot of broken sprinkler heads. This is not any fault of theirs. They just have a high traffic area that I think people tend to end up damaging the sprinkler head. And so you'll drive by, you'll see the water spraying up 10, 12 feet into the street and not really serving the purpose of irrigating the turf. It's irrigating our asphalt going into our drainage system, and they're ultimately paying for that at the higher tier rate for a commercial entity. Do you have something to add from the
You
commercial?
said it with the broken heads, that was what I was going to say.
So you can kind of see how each individual commercial entity has utilized functional turf or irrigated turf functionally and non-functionally within this four corners. Next slide. This is a multifamily development. It's the Mesa Ridge Apartments. And so as you can see, their turf area is actually along the backside of their garages that front Mesa Ridge as it turns into Powers. It's not irrigated, or if it was irrigated, it wasn't able to get established because it's on a slope. So these residents aren't able to functionally use this turf. It's for aesthetic purposes as you drive on Mesa Ridge. Next slide. This is the streetscape of Cross Creek Avenue. So the photo on the left is looking west, coming out of the markets at Mesa Ridge, right behind the Dollar Tree. So they also have irrigated turf, similar to the auto body part, or Advanced Auto, whichever, O'Reilly's, I don't remember the name of the business that's there. And then further down Cross Creek, as you get closer to the Cross Creek Park, near Cross Creek and Parkland, you have some AstroTurf that was installed. It comes to who maintains that, though. Right now, that location's within the city right-of-way, and I'm pretty confident we don't maintain that. So it's a matter of who's maintaining that. While it may be low maintenance, there's still maintenance that's required with AstroTurf. Next slide. So this is what front yards can look like when xeriscape is implemented properly. You can still have a beautiful front yard, so people won't necessarily be too concerned about what property values look like when they go to sell or buy a home, what it's going to look like. You can still install xeric landscaping and make it beautiful. These are all homes that were newly constructed within Colorado Springs, with the exception of the lower left-hand corner, which was a retrofit. That was an older home that they then converted to xeric. So they have a lot of the shrubs that fit the area. They have mulch. It varies in how it looks. So it's not just xeriscape, and it's not rock or cactus or nothing at all. So there's a good visual example of what that looks like, because I think some people can go, oh, wait, what is that going to look like if I don't have grass? And it's still a very beautifully designed and aesthetically pleasing visual for each of those new homes. I believe that's it. I don't think we have any more slides.
More
Oh,
example.
more xeric.
Yours were better.
Sorry.
Okay, that must be the last slide.
That's it.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
No, if people want to see, I'll get to you quick. I see your question. Go up to the Colorado Springs Utilities gardens that they have up there and have the example gardens. It's free to tour, and it's absolutely beautiful, some of the ideas they have, and they do have a variety of different types of climates and different plants for those. So that's something free people can do this spring as they're getting inspired to go buy things, they can go up there and check it out. So, Councilmember Duncan.
I have a couple of questions, I think. For the have any consideration been done for artificial grass? I'm not a fan of that, but I'm just wondering, has that come into the conversation?
We have talked about it, and we've kind of gone back and forth. While it's still low maintenance, and a lot of people, as you've seen, have converted from the Xeric that was installed in their front yard to the AstroTurf, there's still some concern in terms of the heat index that it creates. So when you install AstroTurf, it increases the surrounding area by the temperature by
I have it written down.
40. It increases it a lot. She'll get you the exact example of it. But there's also maintenance that goes with it. There's the drainage. It's not necessarily as permeable as some of the rock or mulch and the plantings that go into it.
Synthetic turf is 40 to 70 degrees higher than the surrounding air temperatures.
Can you say that again?
Yes, so synthetic turf makes the air temperature above it and around it 40 to 70 degrees higher. I said that confusing the first time. Yes, and so that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize.
Percent.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, 40 to 70 degrees.
Degrees?
Yes, higher. So the air directly above and around the synthetic turf is 40 to 70 degrees warmer than if you're above Kentucky bluegrass. And so with that, that's something that a lot of people don't realize when they're putting synthetic turf in, is that it gets pretty darn hot, especially if it's not under a shaded area. Some other things I'll say, depending on the quality of the artificial turf that you get, it's pretty slick. I don't know if anyone's ever walked on artificial turf when it's wet, but it's dangerous. Because it gets so hot, it's not ideal for recreating. So if you're putting in a low water alternative thinking that you're going to have a picnic on it or maybe play on it with your kids, that's not necessarily what the case is going to be. Also, it does not tend to be permeable, which is concerning when we think about controlling stormwater runoff. With that water getting warmer and then it going off into our storm drains, it could easily affect the water quality of our surrounding creek beds. So really holistically looking at an artificial turf being supplementary to real plant material, it's not great for the environment. It's not necessarily ideal for families that are occupying these homes. So we have talked about it.
I have a friend that put turf in her backyard in their new home, and they had to install sprinklers so that the kids and the dogs can go out in it. In the summer, they have to cool it off before they can go outside and play on it.
So that picture you just put up, I mean, I would like to see our front, be an example for the aerospace. So any plans, any plans on that?
I think that would be a Scott issue.
What's the Scott issue?
Oh, yeah.
So, Scott,
yeah.
what they're asking, they showed these pictures of rocks and plants and xeriscapes. Can we make the front of City Hall?
Absolutely. We can do whatever the council.
But we take it away, we take away from having our community events out there.
It's not these
You
two
know?
ladies, it's not up to these two ladies to redo the front yard.
No, we have so many community events out there that we use that surface for.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have, Councilmember Rick, did you have another question? Your light is on.
If Councilmember Duncan is done.
Yes.
Okay, so
Oh,
I
I'm
have
sorry.
One more question. So you had a list of companies that they can go to get that, to get, incentives. Do they have any other incentives? Like money is really tight right now for a lot of families. So do they have incentives, that list, the company list that people can go to? Is there anything to attract me to go to these places?
So we do have the lawn replacement program that I mentioned earlier that you can apply to participate in, and that would include turf removal and also some xeriscape plants. As far as other organizations that provide incentives, I'd have to do some research there, but I can certainly look into that.
Please let me know, because they can do things, programs for kids or whatever, to encourage people to come there so they can get the education on it.
Absolutely, yes.
And just to mention there, where this photo is actually taken, the sunflowers in the bottom corner are actually part of the xeric garden that Katie actually worked on part of the grant to put in some xeriscapes. So there is some out there right on the corner there of Ohio and Maine. We did have some xeriscape installed over at Lorraine when the Water and Streets Department was over there, and then up at the UOC building that they did implement a lot of xeric landscaping up there as well.
Also at Well House 3 by the library, there's a nice demo over there with an informational pedestal, which will look similar to what we're putting out around the trails we mentioned earlier. And then we're also looking at some of the unhealthy turf areas that are at the Walt Fortman Center. We're looking at transforming those into drought-tolerant pollinator gardens. So that's in the works as well. But we want to have those examples available so that people can see what they can take back to their landscape at home.
Councilmember Rick? If Councilmember Duncan's finished. Okay.
My question is for Christie regarding commercial and business landscaping. As we know, commercial and business developers are paragons of virtue. They're worried about giving back to their fellow man rather than profit. Is there anything in the ordinance that prevents somebody from just coming in, throwing down 100% rock and saying, here, I'm done?
We do have some standards already where we limit the amount of non-living material, so rock and mulch, but it's at 50%. But as we saw in some of the residential standards, we can still do better on the commercial side of things. I think the commercial side is a little bit of a step above because they're already having to have, by statute, to have those landscape plans designed by licensed landscape architects that take a little bit more care into what that looks like. But in terms of prohibiting somebody from just laying out rock, we have some standards, but it's not great.
Yeah, I think we ought to take a look at that.
Which is one of the items that we were looking at trying to model what happens with the residential to kind of implement that where we can with the commercial as well.
Thank you.
Were you through? Councilmember Estes.
I love a lot of these ideas, and trying to get these ideas across to my mom is like an uphill battle because she likes her grass. Don't forget about looking at the xeriscaping around the museum, because that's a city building also. And we would love to have that because it looks like ick right now. So we would love to have that, and it's right across from utilities, to use that as a demonstration area also, because people go by there, and it's a nice handy selling point with our utilities people right there.
Yeah, we can absolutely look into converting some of that turf over there.
Yeah, because I know that they've talked about there's some trees over there, and they're talking about the maintenance, because there's no maintenance that gets done on those trees, and they need maintenance, so we might get pushed back on those trees, but I like the trees for the shade, but I like it just to look better.
And
'cause it is
Sylvia
a city
also
building.
mentioned that another high-traffic area is within the new pump track in Metcalf Park that Katie and Parks Department is working on installing a lot of xeric landscape there. So
Yeah, it just
another
makes sense for
high-traffic
this
area
area.
that shows that the city is modeling what we want our citizens to do as well.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I love the replace the turf bit. I'm working on my mother to go along with this. So it's been a challenge because she likes her grass, even though at 95, she really shouldn't be out mowing it, even though she thinks she should. But we're working on it. Thank you.
I hope we don't have to shut the pump park down, though, to let the landscape get established. That is so popular for all the youth. There's no way we can, they're going to ride on it even if you block it off. So might as well save the heartburn on trying to get them to stay off it, right? These are for commercial new builds, correct?
The first portion I talked about single-family residential new builds.
Right. But what we're talking about right now, this is for commercial new builds, right?
Yes.
So at what phase would they have to be in their submission of their project to have these new ones kick in? Because I don't want to have people, residential or commercial, angry with us that I've submitted plans for a year, everything's been approved, and now all of a sudden you've changed the standards at the last minute. It's going to cost me a fortune to go back and redo it.
Right. What we've seen anytime standards change, whether it's landscaping or any other standard, if a review is already in process, whether it's residential or commercial, you fall under the standards that were in place when you submitted, the date of submittal. That wouldn't mean that you were 95% done with your project approvals and then we go, oops, we've changed our regulations, go back to the beginning. This isn't the game of go back to home or go back to start or I'm not great at board games, so I don't know what that
Okay,
reference was,
okay.
but thank you.
I just wanted to make sure.
But yeah, so it would make
okay.
sure that it's not falling under, making them start all over and spending a ton of money. But it would go into effect whenever that is approved by council. If it is approved by council, that date could be established, or it could become effective at whatever date it's determined.
Councilmember Duncan?
I just want, one last thing is that what Christy said about the, there's certain landscaping materials that we use just for here in Fountain. I think that's absolutely important to put out there. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on plants and shrubs, and even when the homeowners association, we noticed different trees that survived and didn't. So I think, that's an absolute must that we need, to put out there that, and, that could save you some money.
You might spend an extra 50 on the tree, but you're not going to have to water it for the next 20 years, yeah.
If they,
Yeah.
they especially, we have a lot of people that are moving in and out, and they think that they can bring their honeysuckle tree and it won't survive here.
And a lot of it is the transient nature of our community. We have a lot of people that come from all over the country that think it's all the same, and then they come to Colorado and try to plant their grass and thinking we got plenty of water. It doesn't work unless you turn that sprinkler system on.
The education never ends.
The educational part is
Yeah, we got some citizens in the back, I believe, that have, at least one that has a question. Okay, come on up.
Hello. Jean Smith, met you before, Widefield resident. I understand what is being proposed and that this is just a discussion. I have, I think a good point on it is water conservation. I have 53 years of trial and error working with a yard and other people's yards. And I think Mr. Blankenship's comments about education and about workshops would be most beneficial. I think it would be up to the, should I say, not the developer, but whoever sells the homes to provide your handout information about trees and shrubs that would be acceptable, various community landscaping classes, and as I said, mine was trial and error. Some things made it, I dig them up and replace them. I've put in a sprinkler system, I've done this, I've done that, blah, blah, blah. You have rules in place, regulation regarding water conservation. The more you use, the more you pay. Grass is easier to take care of. Grass is cooler. The dogs love it. I love it. Nice to walk in. To do the xeriscaping, these beautiful shrubs are expensive. You're looking at nice shrubs, $25 to $50 a gallon or a 5-gallon container. This is not cheap to start from scratch. Rock is hard to take care of. I have one area that I've rocked that I don't use. I have to vacuum it with a leaf blower. I have weeds to keep out, and it is hot. And so that's an area in my yard that I don't use, I walk by. And this, as I said, this xeriscaping, those shrubs, they are not, you've got to constantly maintain those, keep them trimmed, or you have someone like me come in and do your yard work. So I'd like for you to consider those kinds of things before you, and I really think you ought to have a public hearing or a public meeting on this. This is a major decision that you are proposing to make for a property owner. And I wonder how you as a group, as a representative committee, council, how do you have the right, basically, to dictate to me as a property owner what I do with my yard other than maintaining the codes for code enforcement? End of comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Mr. Linder, could you come up, please? I wasn't sure if you were just standing to stretch or had a comment.
Good evening, Mrs. Thompson. Al Linder, REA Road. what the lady just said is absolutely correct. There, I'm looking at these pictures of all this nice rock and all these bushes. What happens in a year or two? Everything freaking dies, everything's all crap. Like she says, they don't have the money to replace it. It's like always you're coming up with all these rules all the time, which I don't like, and I don't like changes. Mayor, I don't know who that lady was in the black there that was up here talking. And, you know, Mr. Blankenship, I didn't know what you were, what you did in the community until tonight. So you're the utilities director, I guess, right?
That is correct. Yes.
And what is this young lady behind you that was talking?
I'm going to let Mr. Blankenship answer.
Katie Helm, she works in the utilities department. She's our sustainability and conservation programs manager.
Well, as you know, I got large acre lots. I haven't heard anything about large acre lots. I haven't heard anything about wildlife. Well, never mind wildlife, you know, horses, livestock, that's what I wanted to say. You know, where I'm at, the lady already said it. You use X amount of gallons, you know, it's a certain level. Level 2 is another level. Level 3 and a level 4. Am I right, Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, we have a tiered water rate system, and I do want to make one point of clarification while I have an opportunity to do so, sir, is that what we're proposing are regulations for new construction. We're not proposing to make these regulations apply to existing properties. What our plan is, as we've talked about this evening, is to work with existing property owners through educational programs and potentially incentives or other programs to help make those conversions for those who wish to do so. For existing property owners like yourself who would not benefit or would not see any benefit in making any changes, you would not be compelled to do so, sir.
So when I run trees around my whole border of my property, I'm going to be using a lot of water, so that'll be fine.
As long as you pay your bill, it'll be fine. And you know, like I said, the more you use, the more you pay in our system.
That's where I'm at on the tier
Right.
system. But
Correct.
Okay, so this is all for new people, so fine, I should just be out of this.
it's okay.
Mayor, as I'm standing in the back there, you can't hear. You
Okay.
can't hear what you people are saying. This lady with the black hair, the assistant, whatever, I couldn't hear. It was all mumble jumble. So I don't know if you can do anything to correct it. You know, us older folks back there, we have a little harder time hearing different things. So I'd appreciate if somebody would do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All right, hang on just one second, Mrs. Luke. Paul, did you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a quick comment on that. For the benefit of those who are having problems hearing some of the discussion and commentary, we do have some changes coming in the next few weeks. Right now we're looking at the first couple of weeks of March to where our new system will be implemented, and that should resolve a lot of those issues moving forward. Unfortunately, the system we have here now is 20 years old. It is showing its age. We are struggling with it, trying to balance it so that it's audible for everyone in the room, and at the same time we don't run into feedback issues. But for those of you, especially council members that may have noticed, we do have new equipment that's waiting in the wings, so to speak, for completion. And once that's up, our hopes are that that's going to resolve a lot of the concerns and a lot of the issues of audio in this room.
Yeah, and just, council members, just remember, turn your mic on, and it does sound louder to us talking up here to ourselves because of where the monitors are. So even though it may sound really loud to us up here, as Mrs. Smith has told me repeatedly for the last 8 years, lean into the microphone. Okay, all right. Okay, Mrs. Carrick, did you have a question?
We've had lots of comments on what's going on up on the mesa, but 8587 is a main thoroughfare through Fountain, and there are some areas of that could use some, looks like water, or maybe some plants. That area in front of the shopping center where Ink Fountain or Come On In, that's always pretty green, and the trees are pretty good there. But over to the right and down in front of the pawn shop, I know there have been some concerns about the landscaping there. Is that the city's area?
I'll bow to Todd or Scott on that one.
Yeah, it's actually CDOT, but we help maintain that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
By agreement with CDOT.
Okay.
So if we made any changes to that landscaping, though, it would have to be approved by CDOT before we could do anything?
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, okay. All right, good question. It always gets very confusing around here, all the state highways and the county and the city, and it gets very confusing. Councilmember Duncan? Oh, you couldn't turn it on? Okay. All right. Now, this is just a discussion item, so we won't be making any, decisions tonight, but that's a lot of information. I'm assuming you can get all that emailed out to us, the slide deck that was presented tonight, so we can review it better?
Yes, absolutely. We can email that out to council.
Okay. Is there any further questions or comments from anybody on council? And do you have a time frame for when you were going to bring this back? And have you reached out to the HBA and had any of the feedback from them? And I know, it's an and, I'm sorry. You also, one of the first slides said that Springs and County were adopting the same standard, we're adopting similar standards. Are you in discussions with them at all, especially the county? Because I think it's really frustrating to people coming in from outside the state, and you have one standard in all these different places, so.
Do you want to answer, or do you want me?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to work backwards from your question.
Sorry.
So working with Colorado Springs and the county, we have been in conversations with them, but we're really going to be the spearhead with this in our region between the county and Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is still probably another year or two away from formally adopting all of their regulations for their landscaping standards, and the county is really struggling to find a consultant that can create a landscape plan that's geared towards the various elements of the county. They have urban level development, they have a lot of properties that are on well, and then as you get further east, it's a lot of just large acreage, 10, 20, 30 plus acres that are just all natural. So they're really having a hard time trying to draft regulations that can fit the all-encompassing need.
I would think they would start with their urbanized areas, yeah.
Yes, but they are looking at it. They are aware of all of it. Everybody in this region is aware. Water is a finite amount of resource, and we're all in the same, lack of a better word, boat together. So yes, but we will be spearheading that. In terms of the stakeholder process, we did start with council first to get some direction on thoughts and opinions on the Xeric standards and transitioning from incentive and voluntary program to making it more of the standard within our community before we start reaching out to the stakeholders. We don't want to go to the stakeholders and say, here's some various proposals. We really want some concrete guidance from council as to what they'd like to see, especially with some of the residential standards. I think that's going to be probably one of the more talked about points of the conservation, not so much from the commercial side of things. So earlier in the presentation, there were two tables in terms of some of the landscape standards. If there's any guidance on which one you feel is better or worse or a little bit of a mix of two, then we can kind of go back and start massaging some of these. In terms of a deadline, no, we don't have a specific date yet, but we're, again, looking from the guidance from you as the starting point and then reaching out to stakeholders, and then we'll start drafting those regulations and bringing it back before council for formal action.
Okay, Katie, did you have something else to say?
No, she covered it all.
Okay, all right. Staff, anything?
The only thing I'd like to say is I'd like to emphasize Christie's comment about the county going out and looking for a consultant to do this, which we all know anytime you do that is
With the mic.
anytime you do that is a couple of $100,000. So I want to give credit to the ladies bringing this forward and doing that work for us. So we're handling that internally instead of having to go out and do that. So your guidance is key, and we'll follow through with, as Christie said, the stakeholder process once we get that guidance.
Dan, you look like you need to say something.
I want to thank Katie and Christy for their collaboration. They've put in a lot of effort here, and they're really trying to meet the objectives that we've established, not only to conserve water, but to do something that really looks good in the community. We've got to work through the process. We wanted to come to you all first to kind of hear kind of what your ideas and thoughts were, so at least when we head down this track, we're hopefully headed down the track that you want us to head down. But we will we'll come back after we go through the process and have a little bit more discussions before we finalize things.
Okay, so that's a lot of information tonight, a lot of information. I need some time to really digest it. What kind of time frame does everybody feel kind of comfortable with? Would you want them to bring back for discussion in 2 weeks, a month? Council members, how much time you think you need to look it over and kind of talk to people about it? Fred?
Yeah, for me, at least a month.
At least a month, okay. I'll just go down the row, how's that? Councilmember Duncan?
I would say.
Can you turn your mic on?
Is it on?
No.
Okay.
There you go.
There it is. Okay. So I would say a month or two.
At least a month or two, okay. Councilmember Applegate?
Yeah, a month or two. A month might not even be enough to go over all that. Are we going to get some paperwork on that so we can see those pictures?
Yeah, they're going to send it out.
Give us time to look at all of it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
At least a month, and it would help us. I'm with our citizen, Ms. Smith. I've looked at doing the xeriscaping, and it is an expense, and so if we could kind of get some cost comparisons.
Yeah, because I've had friends that they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, pun intended, okay? They want a xeriscape, but they just don't have the money to do it, but they're frustrated with the amount of money they're spending on the water, and so then you get the dead dirt, right? Dead dirt, is that a term? It is tonight, huh? Councilmember Corey?
Let's go ahead and let's wait a couple months on this.
Okay, and Councilmember Rick?
I'm flexible. Whatever the rest of council wants to do is fine with me.
Okay, so I heard basically people want a couple of months to look at it, investigate it, call Katie, call Christy, I didn't want to say another K for some reason, and ask your questions, get information, do your research, and hopefully come back. And it will be a discussion item again when we come back in 2 months. Is that correct? Not a vote? We'll have at least one more time where we have discussion on this. Okay, and then once we're through with the discussion, everybody needs to come back prepared to vote and not put it off for another time. Okay.
Wait a minute, real quickly, just for clarification, didn't you want to have the council discuss, come up with sort of a general consensus so that then you could approach the stakeholders at that point with the council feedback, or?
Yeah, we have no problem coming back within a month or two with further discussion, and we can gather the estimates for xeric conversion and things like that, so we have all that information. Some guidance, I guess, because it sounds like, yes, we want to do things, but we just don't really know which direction to go. And I just want to make sure that when we come back, we're bringing back quality information to you guys so you can make a decision. Because at that point, if we're still coming back with a discussion, we need to make sure that we know which direction we're going to.
I think that you wanted a couple months to sort of digest it, see what it is. And so from what I heard, they're going to have a couple months to digest it, maybe reach out, ask questions. You come back, and then they'll be able to give you some feedback about, hey, you know what, let's tweak this, let's change that. Then you go on your stakeholder tour.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you envision?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify that.
That's okay. It's good to clarify it before we spend a lot of time going down the wrong path, right? I got all sorts of puns up here tonight. I could just pop out with this. Okay. It's like with the egg thing, right? And the chicken. We had a lot of them going that night, too. If you don't remember that discussion, you are lucky.
I have one extra question. There's the communities that are already doing some of this, can we get some kind of draft guidance, or what are they doing? So we can compare what they're doing to, kind of see.
Yeah, we can get all the examples of what what those entities are doing.
So that kind of gives us a ballpark.
Because that's kind of where we started, is we looked at what entities have already started doing this, and that's how we started modeling and putting together those various scenarios.
Yeah,
It's
because I
based on
think
what
that
people
helps
are
us see
already
the big
doing.
picture a little better.
Yep.
Councilmember Duncan?
I was just going to say to the ladies that I was going to send a list of questions that I had, and,
Good
you know.
idea.
Okay. Perfect, yeah. And if you notice us all sending in similar questions, you might want to just kind of shuffle out one, compilation question of the same, if we're all asking the same thing, and send it out, so you don't have to answer all 6 or 7 of us individually on the same question, so, yeah. But, yeah, get your questions in, and thank you for a great presentation, a lot of work. And last chance, council, for any questions. I don't see any lights on.
Not a question, but a comment. Christie, you asked about the tables. There was one that had percentages and one that had square feet. My preference is the table with the square feet. If I'm a developer or if I'm somebody that's building a home, I don't want to have to do a bunch of math to figure out what my square footage is and then have somebody come behind me and say, no, your math is wrong. You got X instead of Y. Just tell me what square feet I can put in and I'll deal with it. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Before we move on. All right, before we roll down the river. All righty. Huh? I got a whole bunch of them coming out there tonight, yeah. All righty. Okay. We will leave to the next item, correspondence, comments, and ex officio reports. We do have executive session tonight, so kind of keep that in mind. Council members, if you have something really pressing, that's fine, but otherwise, let's kind of just keep it shorter. I'm going to begin with Councilmember Estes really quick, because I think you have something important from the Fountain Creek Watershed District.
The Fountain Creek Watershed District, we have a new interim director. It's Ally Such, who we've worked with extensively. And so she's the interim, and that is good through the end of March, and we can extend it as we decide what to do going forward. And we have, the district has put in for a grant, and through, I think it's Water Alliance, to help with the Southmore. And we've committed some funds. Exactly, like Mr. Evans says, it's this much of a grant when it's this much of a project. So, but it's a start. So we are very concerned with that, and we will be having a retreat on the 18th, or a work session, and part of that will be a discussion on if the district moves forward with doing a mill levy increase to try to fund the projects in the district, and that would be between Pueblo and El Paso counties. That's one of the discussions that will be occurring, and if we don't want to do a mill levy, how do we fund the projects that need to happen? So hopefully that'll be coming.
Is that February 18th? Or
February 18th,
okay.
From 8 to noon, right here.
And Mayor, just one thing to add on Ms. Estes' comments. Just to keep expectations reasonable, that grant doesn't have anything to do with reopening the road. That is just to help mitigate any further damage to that corner, but very, very small in terms of the big project of opening the road.
When there's even concern that that little drop in the bucket is not going to, we have another flood event, it could end up down the creek anyway.
As many
unless we do
others
it.
have,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is a concern.
Yeah.
Okay, but as we saw with Charter Oak Ranch Road, it was 15 years of saving up grants and getting little different grants here and there to eventually get all the money for what we now have the MAMSIP project going on. So, sometimes those little ones start adding up to some bigger ones, so. All right, thank you. Scott?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple real quick items. Just reminding the council that we are currently monitoring everything going on in the legislature. We've got a great lobbyist we're working with, and we're going through all the bills just to try to get a sense of what's going on. So just want to let you know we're continuing to monitor that. And then also let you know that we're also working on coordinating a training with council on OEM and active shooter. We've been coordinating that with Pikes Peak Regional OEM as well as the PD to help out with the active shooter piece. So we'll be getting back with you shortly, hopefully with some potential dates for that.
Nothing from Todd? PD?
No, thank you for having Specialist Spencer tonight. Great young lady, 22 years old, has a bright future. Our next contact point with her will be she wants to do a ride along with our Beacon team. So I'll let you know how that goes, and she's very excited to come see that team and how they operate in Fountain. And I think she'll get along with our clinician, who's roughly the same age. So it'll be good. Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to see if there's anybody else next to Christy. No? Okay. Ms. Martinez? Okay. Dan?
I'm good, thank you very much.
John?
Good evening, Mayor. Just two things. First is we have launched our refresh of the My Fountain app. It's now called My Fountain CO. My Fountain Colorado, you can download it on the App Store on your Android or your Apple device. It's very easy to find. It's got a picture of City Hall with our city logo. It's a very nice refresh. It's a one-stop shop for citizens to pay their water bill, contact our city council members, report a pothole, contact the police department. So we're very excited about this. You can, we've got a good information campaign going on in both established media on our website and on social media. So I would encourage all the council members, as you're interacting with citizens, to encourage them to download the My Fountain CO app. The other thing is, yesterday you got the chance to participate in our first site visit for our very first project on Fort Carson as part of our General Facility Construction Intergovernmental Support Agreement, or IGSA. It's very exciting. I shared with staff today. It's pretty neat to go. We're doing an electrical project in one of the hangars over at the Combat Aviation Brigade. Pretty neat to be over there with our contractors, looking at a project for a table that they use to conduct maintenance on their aircraft. And they took us back there, and in the hangars parked about 10 Apache helicopters, and all the soldiers are in their work, doing their work, and we're there helping on a table that helps them, keep those aircraft maintained. So Fountain is definitely, we are definitely supporting the military mission with that IGSA. So something to be proud of. Just wanted to share that with you. Thank you.
On the app for the PD part, though, I make it clear, this is non-emergent issues you would contact PD with.
That is correct.
Right?
It says
Well,
non-emergency
this
numbers.
is, yeah, non-emergent issues. Not, you got an emergency, you still dial those magic 3 numbers, right?
Yes, it does. And so,
Yeah.
in fact, we put it there in about 3 different places as well. So it says non-emergency fire, non-emergency police, and then if you have an emergency, dial 911. Yeah, it says it very clearly on the app and like 3
Yeah,
different locations.
okay, so the things they would contact them for is potentially what on the app?
So non-emergency type of calls to public safety. What would be some examples of that?
Maybe your car was broken into, there's no data, everyone's gone, there's no emergency. When we go, for example, there's crashes, when we go in a cold reporting status, you could report that, and we get a cop out to your house, you can report online, as an example.
Okay.
Cop in progress, need a cop, our philosophy, good customer service, want a cop, we send a cop, 90%.
Okay, great.
It's all part of adding that, and just, again, like the priority says, they're just being sure that our police department and fire are accessible to the community. If citizens want to, interact with our public safety professionals, that's a way they can contact them.
A lot of those come in too, Sharon, as parking complaints, speeding complaints. I see a lot of those that we field.
Like everybody's speeding on my street, can you put the trailer on my
Correct.
street, or that kind of
Yes,
stuff? Okay. Why aren't you giving out more than 2,000 tickets a month, right?
Yes, ma'am. We tried last year.
Okay. All right. Sylvia?
I don't have anything tonight, thank you.
Okay, Gordon?
Just a quick shout out to both the fire department and police department. Last weekend, they came out and did a tour parade / for Louise Leachman, former Chamber of Commerce member, for her 100th birthday.
Yes.
So thanks to PD and FD for that.
You know what? I'd skip Paul because I'm not used to him being over there by his little lonely self over there.
Yeah, I am kind of off by myself now with the change in the room. I have nothing this evening, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. I love the bigger screen. I can read that even without my glasses. I can.
Thank you. Hopefully that's the first of many things yet to come.
All right. Councilmember Corey.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Hinton.
Just a quick shout out to Fountain PD. I told you privately, Chief, but I'll say it in publicly. I appreciate all the videos that you've been sending out to us, and the great work that your young men and women are doing over there. So tell them to keep doing it, keep it up, and we appreciate all their service that they do. All right.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, anything else?
Just a request on the app. Tonight, we had the city council meeting listed at 6 o'clock. If we're doing the proclamations and stuff, can we please get that put on there on the calendar for 5:30, so that it's out in the public that that stuff's happening.
Okay. Councilmember Applegate. She's talking about the city calendar that's on the website.
Oh, the calendar, I just
Yeah.
want that. Yeah, nothing tonight.
Yeah. Councilmember Duncan?
Well, I had said stuff earlier, and everybody was looking at me, and I was wondering why y'all looking at me.
That's okay. It's a change. It's a change. We all need time to
It's a
adapt,
change,
right?
that's for sure.
We all need time to adapt, yeah. All
The
right.
only thing I wanted to ask is on our new system to Paul, is it closed captions online? Is that an option?
It'll be closed captioned after the fact on the YouTube stream. Unfortunately, right now, we're not doing live closed captioning. That's not so much a feature of the system. That's actually, that would be something where we'd have to bring in a third party from the outside to do live closed captioning. That usually involves a human translating that the spoken word to text. That's something that we probably should look at down the road. I do know that there is a significant expense involved in that. We've looked at it in the past, and that's something that ultimately that would be our goal, is to be able to provide live closed captioning for public meetings.
Okay, because Gordon is losing his hearing, so he's going to need that soon.
We have the new T-coil system, though. He can just touch his hearing aid and hear it all right through it, so. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, I didn't mean to interrupt. Having said that, though, just to reiterate, for the YouTube stream, not on the live side, but after it does have an automated process that after that has processed for about an hour, there will be closed captioning coming up for those who watch that after the fact, and when they go back to watch it on YouTube. It will be closed captioned at that point, and that's an automated process that doesn't cost the city anything. But as far as live, that's something we would have to look at and try to fund.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And just to add, Councilmember Duncan, I watched those YouTube uploads of our council meetings afterwards with the closed captioning. It's pretty good. I mean, sometimes the quality of that can be questionable, but it actually does a pretty good job, and it's uploaded pretty shortly after the council meetings are over. And one of the changes now that Paul and his team have worked on is that even when we do the hybrid meetings that are the go-to webinar, they're simultaneously now being streamed on our YouTube as well. So there's multiple places that citizens can go to watch it.
And another good reason to use your microphone, because they're not going to hear you on YouTube if you don't use your microphone, right? I've been there with the headphones. What did that person say? All right, with that, this is the announcement of an executive session. So in accordance with the city charter and the Colorado Opens Meeting Act, the city council open session is to determine whether it will hold a closed executive session. A closed executive session may be held upon an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. If consent to the closed executive session is not given, the items may be discussed in open session or withdrawn for consideration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council. I would like to request 2 executive sessions tonight pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024B for the purpose of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions, and for the record, we will have 2 separate legal questions under that statute. And I will entertain a motion, please.
Okay, Councilmember Rick?
Move we go into executive session.
Councilmember Hinton?
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? Please vote.
7 yes, motion carried.
Okay, everybody else, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Can we take 5?
Yes, let's take, Sylvia, 8:20.